Welcome. So, finally, Jack Eichel is no longer a Buffalo Sabre. No, really. He's not. I swear to God. Before we dive into this, if you happen to be new to the channel, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I'd really appreciate it. I'm trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark and monetize this YouTube page. But if you happen to be an oldie but goodie subscriber, please consider visiting my crowdfunding site called BuyMeACoffee.com. You can find a link to it in the description box or just on my YouTube page. You can support me yearly, monthly, or on a one-time basis. Blah, blah, blah. Let's get to the entree. Let's begin with the details. Vegas, of course, gets Eichel and a 2023 third-round pick. Buffalo gets Alex Tuch, a power forward who can play both wings, but who's a right shot. He should be able to step into their top six. He's coming off the IR at the moment from a shoulder injury. He's got 4 more years after this one at $4.75 million. He's 25 years old, originally from New York State, New York State, by the way. There are good steaks in New York, though. And he was a great depth scorer for the Knights, who usually played as a third-line winger. They also get Peyton Krebs, a former first-rounder center/left winger who's 20 years old, picked 17th overall in 2019. Now, he's only played around 15 or so NHL games over the span of 2 seasons, but he's been coming around of late, even though he doesn't have many points. Eventually, I at least see him playing in Buffalo's middle six, and who is now also arguably Buffalo's most highest-ranked forward prospect. The Sabres also get a 2022 first-round pick from the Knights. There's an asterisk attached to that, though, because it's top 10 protected. If Vegas finishes in the bottom 10, that pick slides to 2023 and will be unprotected. And lastly, Buffalo gets a 2023 second-round pick. I'd imagine that Krebs might play the rest of this season in the AHL and then probably start in the NHL next season. Right now, Buffalo is surprisingly 5-3-1 to begin the season, a +6 in the goal differential department, and 3rd in the Atlantic. So Buffalo essentially gets a player, a prospect, both of whom are former first-round draft picks, and 2 draft picks, a first and a second. Not a bad haul considering. More on that in a second. Now, Vegas, at the moment, has a record of 4-5-0, and there are -9 in the goal differential department, 7th in the Pacific. There is a realistic possibility they could miss the playoffs. Now, here's a scenario for you. What if they do, and they end up being one of the bottom 10 teams, and they get a top 10 draft pick? They'd actually have a high pick for their empty draft cupboards. And then next year, when all their players are healthy and they take a good run at the Cup, Buffalo will probably end up getting a pick anywhere from 20 to 32 in the first round. Now, I'm sure the players and most fans won't be happy about them just washing out this season, but that's the silver lining in this scenario. If the Golden Knights manage to claw their way back into a playoff spot and everyone gets healthy, Buffalo doesn't get a top 10 draft pick. They could take a run with Eichel this season and in the foreseeable future. Chandler Stevenson will probably bump down back to third-line center, which is a good thing because they need more depth guys, especially after losing Alex Tuch. And of course, Eichel will take the 1C spot with Carlson at 2. And Patrick either as a fourth-line center or a third-line winger. So in the perfect world, should have the Buffalo Sabres gotten a better deal for Jack Eichel? Yes. Could they have? No. Now, one of the reasons being of which has to do with Eichel and his new agent, Brisson. From what I heard, I believe they got one of the NHL recommended doctors to agree to the surgery, and Eichel's agent was threatening to take this to arbitration, in which case, because of that, they would have had a much better chance of winning it, which put more pressure on Buffalo to get this deal done sooner than later. Not to mention, Eichel's been going through some degree of pain, I would imagine, throughout this whole ordeal. Then there's the value of the player, which just continues to decline, because the longer this thing goes on, the less chance he has of playing not just in the regular season, but maybe even in the playoffs, because of, obviously, the surgery and the recovery time involved. McCrimmon came out and said it could be anywhere from 3 to 5 months. Although a disc replacement surgery has never been done on an NHL player, it has been done on a UFC fighter, but in any case, the recovery time is just different from person to person. So in order to maximize the trade return, Eichel needed to have the possibility of not just playing in the regular season, but especially the playoffs. And then there's a $10 million Eichel is owed over the next 5 seasons, including this one. There's only so many teams who can fit that under the cap right now, especially with COVID, which has stalled the growth of the salary cap. Now, according to some insider reports, Calgary was also interested, not to mention Carolina, which I only found out about today by Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet. And finally, believe it or not, the Vegas Golden Knights are actually taking a risk here. Will Eichel be the same player when he returns? Will he have the same mobility? Will he go through chronic pain? What's the recovery period going to look like? And although I've heard he's been skating, he hasn't played a game since March. In the end, the Sabres never really got what they originally were asking, which was 4 first-rounders. On a side note, if they really wanted to, Buffalo could even flip Tuck at this or future trade deadlines, and probably get a first-rounder for him as well. So in the end, this could be a real big payoff for Vegas. But because of the circumstances, I think this was a fair trade for both teams. But I still give the edge to the Knights. And you can't ignore that the Sabres and their owners got to take some responsibility in the lack of return on this trade. Because they should have got this deal done much earlier to maximize his trade value, and or to just let him get the surgery, regardless of the insurance company policies. I would love to hear what you think of this trade, who you think won it, what these teams will look like going down the road in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please be kind to each other out there in this crazy world we're living in right now, and I'll see you soon.